In section 1.4, we're going to look at solving equations. Solving an equation that contains a variable means finding all values of the variable that make that equation true. These values are considered the solutions of the equation. So here I have up the properties of equality. You don't necessarily need to write these down, but I think it's a good thing to kind of have up here to come back to if you need a little bit of guidance on different steps of how you could solve an equation. The first problem we're going to look at is solving a multi-step equation. So our goal here is that we want to get the y by itself. So how we're going to do that is to distribute out this 3 and then combine like terms. So first I'm going to multiply out the 3. I'll be left with 3y minus 9 equals negative 27 plus 6y. Now what I want to do is I want to get all my y's on one side and all of the numbers on one side. I always recommend subtracting the smaller value into the bigger value just because it keeps everything positive. Equals negative 9. Then I'll want to bring over this 27. My last step to get y by itself is going to be to divide everything by 3. And I'll be left with y equals 6. If you want to double check if this was right, plug 6 in for y in this equation and then see if it matches up. So the equation we just looked at had one solution. So we had y equals 6. If you plugged anything in for y, the equation wouldn't be true. Today we're going to dive a little bit deeper into this, and we're going to look at equations that have infinite solutions and no solutions. If we have no solutions, sometimes you kind of mark it by this symbol here. That would mean that you could plug anything in for x and that equation would not hold true. On the other end, you might have an equation that has infinite solutions. Another way you would describe this is called an identity equation, and you would say that that equation is always true. So let's look at a few examples with this. Part A asks, is this equation always, sometimes, or never true? So again, what they're asking here, if it's always true, that means that it has infinite solutions. If it's sometimes, it has one. And if it's never true, that means that there's no solutions. So what I'm going to do here to start in part A is I'm going to combine everything on either side of the equation. So first I want to combine this 11 and negative 7. Since they're on the same side, I can just combine them. So this is going to turn into 4 plus 3x. On the other side, I'm going to combine the 6 and negative 3x. And I'll be left with this. Now, I see that I have a 3x on both sides of the equation, so I'm going to cancel this out. And I'm left with 4 equals 5. When I run into a situation like this, 4 is never going to be equal to the value of 5. So this is an example of when something is never true. So no matter what you plug in for x, this equation will never make sense, or it will never equal each other. So let's look at another equation. Again, I'm going to want to combine everything on the same side first. So this is going to change to 4x plus 5. And then I'm going to combine the 4 and 1, and that's going to also leave me with 4x plus 5. Now in this situation, I see that the equation is already the same exact thing on both sides. When I run into this situation, that tells me that the equation is always true. Why? No matter what value you plug in for x, these equations will always be equal to each other because it's the same equation. The last thing that we're going to look at today is a literal equation. A literal equation is an equation that uses at least 2 or more variables. You might see a lot of these in like any science class you take, or especially a physics class. The example we're going to talk about deals with temperature. The equation C equals 5 over 9 F minus 32 relates temperature in degrees Fahrenheit to degrees Celsius. They're asking, what is F in terms of C? So when you see a question like this, what they're basically asking you to do is to get F by itself, or solve for F. So let's write out our equation. And I want to make everything that's not F go to the other side. What I would do here first is to get rid of that 5 over 9, I would multiply by the reciprocal. if I do that, they cancel out, and I'm going to be left with 9 over 5c equals f minus 32. And my last step would be to get the 32 over. I'll be left with f equals 9 over 5c plus 32.